What is up, everybody? Okay, there we go. What is up, everybody? Welcome to day 5 of the camera and videography workshop here, held on the Ecamm channel. My name's Lewis, also known as Mr. Camera Junkie, where I remind you to upgrade your skills before your gear. And today is the last day, day 5, and today's subject at hand is building the look and feel of your shot, which is basically how you put your final signature to what you create digitally and what we have the capability of doing with these amazing machines and devices. And with that being said, I want to thank you for taking the time and doing this workshop with us here. And let's see exactly who's here in the chat. We have Mr. Moderators in the house saying hello to the fam. We also have George hanging out with us saying hello again because we just finished Doc Rock's stream, or the Ecamm live demo that happens every Friday. A bit late, right? Like at 3:40, and just a couple, 20 minutes after, here we are doing it all over again at 4 o'clock. Dan is saying happy weekend to me and to Aiden. I appreciate that. Aiden is hanging out. He was napping this whole time, and I was thinking I might get just a chunk of him being asleep during this last lesson, but he's wide awake, hanging out, and he probably might make his presence felt like he has before. Gretchen's also in the house saying, "Friday fam, hi to Aiden and myself. Made it home yesterday." Oh, right, that is great news to know that you're nice, home, and safe. And if you haven't done so already, please be sure to hit the like button. It's highly appreciated. And we're gonna get right into it. Today, I've kind of disassembled a lot of my setup, so I don't have like all my camera set up because we're going to do it on the fly, and I'm going to try to illustrate or demonstrate the best example that I can of creating a different angle and how you might go about it. Now, I have a limited space here, which I kind of already have the look and feel that I like, as you can tell from my setup. But to see if I can, let me see how I can do this real quick. I should be able to do this. Oh, that didn't work the way that I expected because it's in a different format. Okay, so just bringing in my overhead camera. Let me go ahead and go to standard wide. Right, and let me just pretty it up real quick. The colors are right. Let's get some corner radius in there, right? And maybe decrease this to 5. That looks a lot better. All right. And I know it's covering my face, but I just wanted to have it so we could hover it right here, kind of give it another angle. Now, what I wanted to demonstrate was that to be able to control everything that I'm doing here in my setup, having access to, like the audio controls. Traditionally, I would have my microphone, but Today I'm using the Rode Wireless Go 2s hanging out here in front of me, just because I know that I was going to be moving around and moving a lot of things around. So to have one less thing to worry about, I decided to go with the wireless instead of the wired microphone that you can see standing and I kind of have hidden out of the way, so that we can have as much space here as possible to actually get as much done as possible. So I wanted to demonstrate this because at another part of this, like creating the look and feel, is basically how you're going to set up your shot. So let's go ahead and move into here. Building your look and feel, right? First thing that we're gonna do with any scenario that you're working on, whether it's your home studio, on-site location, anything, you're going to work with what you have, right? Either you brought the appropriate equipment to get everything done, and that really depends on your budget, but then at the same time, either running gun situations or your own personal home studio, first you're going to have to work with what you got to get started, right? And at times that could be your home lighting, and that's what we went and talked about in previous lessons, whether it's tungsten, LED, and knowing what type of lighting that you're dealing with is going to be the next big thing. As you can see, evaluate your lighting, work with what you have, but then you have to evaluate your lighting, whether you have mixed lighting, all of the same type or the same brand, because we did touch a little bit on that as well, seeming the fact that not every light is created equal, and different brands, even though we can set them to the correct, Kelvin scale at the back of each different light, each one could actually have different hues and different setups. That's why it would be ideal to have all of the same brand, all of the same color, and preferably all purchased at the same time, so that they're kind of coming out of the same grouping of the factory, so that you can get the most consistent lighting over your setup. But once again, that really is dependent on your budget and what you have. So evaluate your lighting. If you have mixed lighting, then you can go and start using the skills appropriated to that to get the appropriate white balance, so that you can get the most pleasing shot. And if another tip, if you do have mixed lighting, make sure that you're not in auto white balance, because it'll constantly be jumping between the two light sources most of the time, and then changing skin tones, colors, and everything dramatically between one shot or the next, or even in the middle of someone saying something very important. So the next thing that we would do is, after we've taken a look at our environment and adjust and evaluated the lighting, we're going to then take our cameras and set it accordingly, right? Whether it be white balance, and that really also depends on your equipment and your equipment's limitations. Because if you're working with webcams and different devices in those types of categories, which is literally plug and play, then you don't have that ability to do any type of configuration. The devices themselves don't have anything for you to configure, and then that's when programs like Ecamm that we're using here could help you out, because they themselves have the ability to adjust some tint, hues, brightness, and extra features that won't be found in just standard plug and play devices. So depending on how much adjustment you have within your gear, right, and how much adjustments you could actually apply depending on your situation, you would set those accordingly. So once we've taken those steps, and now you have your cameras or your cameras set up the way that you like according to the lighting, then you're going to select your composition, which is where I go back to on this shot here, basically showing you the background as well. Because of the composition of the way that I have it set up and the proximity that I need to my devices here, because they're set up this way, I chose to use a wide angle lens, a 16 millimeter, that with the crop factor gives me an equivalent of a 24 millimeter, and that is what I'm using. Another thing that I want to talk about is that I also choose to be standing, because whenever I do presentations, I feel that I just perform better while standing comparative to sitting. So if the composition that you're doing for your studio is a sitting setup, then you would need to put that into play as well. Now, there's depending on your studio size, a lot of people have the ability to actually have like the extended room behind their desk, and because of seeing setups like mine that is very condensed, think that all the cameras need to be very close to your face so that you can get the best type of imagery and results, which is where the interchangeable lens camera systems are really going to come into play, giving you the ability to recompose shots and give you the type of imagery that you want. And it really depends on your situation, because if you have the ability or the space to actually put a camera on the other side of the room, you can actually set up your studio or your location to have a lot more space while still getting the results that you want, because you can set a camera with a like zoom lens or zoom focal length to you and create the space, instead of having the need to have a camera directly attached your in front of your desk, basically eliminating any functionality of the desk itself. So that's when you really have to kind of like let the wheels, the cog wheels, play in your mind and look at every different scenario as an open canvas to see what you can or cannot do. So we're going to try to get through some of those as well. Now, going back to this, once you've selected your composition and your focal length, basically you're all set. That's where the point where I say you can just start creating, and from there, the possibilities are endless. So I'm gonna do my best to look at what's going on in chat, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and just go through a couple of demonstrations to start working with what you have. So go back here. Let me see if I can just take this off temporarily. Okay, that's cool. Just to talk. Now, depending on what type of camera you have is going to depend on how much you can or cannot do. So I'm going to bypass a lot of the cameras that we would say are webcams, because you don't have any control over them. And the first step into having like control over your imagery when it comes to producing online content is what we call the point and shoot cameras, kind of everything built in. Now, in the previous days, I was using this camera as my overhead, but today I'll be able to actually show you a little bit more of what we're talking about. Now, this is the Sony ZV-1F. Now, they do have a Sony ZV-1, and the difference between that one and this camera, pretty much in a nutshell, is that this one has a fixed focal length of 20 millimeters, equivalent in a wide or in a full frame camera. So this is a 1-inch sensor camera, and doing the equivalent crop factoring, an 8 millimeter lens, right? Let me confirm this. Actually, a 7.6 millimeter lens with the crop factor gives you an equivalent of a 20 millimeter field of view, and that's what this little guy provides. But another thing that it does is that it's all in one compact. There's nothing else that you would need to carry, and the Sony ZV-1 line of cameras actually have a pretty decent microphone. As you can see, it's got the little fuzzy guy on top, and this can be an all-in-one unit, and this is basically what I recommend as an entry level for someone who's stepping away from a webcam. The reason why is because it also has good audio in it as an all-in-one package. Now, there's a lot of people who try to use webcams and use the tiny microscopic little microphone that's in the webcams, or the ones that are on their laptops, which I wouldn't recommend. This has a 3 capsule microphone, so it actually captures good audio. And the feature of this camera that's really cool is that it has a plug and play feature, where just by connecting this camera to your computer, you don't need an additional video capture card or anything like that. It works just like a webcam, except it's giving you a much higher quality. Now, this camera itself is capable of doing 4K imagery, and you are able to extract that from this camera once you have built up enough skills and have the understanding to do so. But plug and play, it does have its limitations, meaning that connecting it via the USB-C cable, you'll be able to get the imagery without a video card, it working itself as a video capture device, sending that signal through the USB-C, and at the same time charging up the camera to give you prolonged battery life, or in some cases indefinite battery life, while using the camera as a video source for your production. And that webcam feature limits the video output to 720p, but it's more than capable of giving you an amazing good 720p image using the appropriate softwares. And at that point, it's just much better than you can find on any basic webcam or standalone. They might be saying that they're a 4K image, but the sensors on these little tiny webcams are so small, and the fact that they don't have appropriate glass in front of that sensor, you cannot compare the imagery. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my USB-C and plug this in to show you exactly what we're doing. Now, let me do this. I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to change this to my, is it D? All right, perfect. So now I have this shot here and the overhead kind of behind the scenes so that you can see what's going on. So let's pretend at this moment that this entire construction here that I've already got going on doesn't even exist. And we've gotten to the point where we have our adequate lighting. We have our 3 points, 1, 2, and 3 right over here, giving us correct exposure. Now, what we're trying to do is build the appropriate shot, right? And that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna just utilize this small little tripod, and I'm just using that to represent something that might be more permanent, but in this case I'll be able to move around, something more like this, something standalone. But we're going to work with what we have, and I'm going to go ahead and just connect the camera to it. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. Let me just kind of like level it out. You can see what I'm kind of already like looking at ahead of time there. And now what I'm going to do is take a USB-C cable. And when it comes to USB-C cables, don't think that every USB-C cable has been created equal. They are not. I highly recommend that if you're going to purchase USB-C cables or any cables in general, that they all be high capacity and like high capacity when it comes to the amount of data that could be transferred through it. If you follow that one rule, then you're pretty much set for everything else. So demonstrating, I'm just connecting this USB-C cable directly into my computer, and the other cable just directly into the camera itself. All right. And it's asking me what do I want to do with the camera right now, and I'm going to set it to live streaming. As soon as I do so, the camera now figures everything else out and automatically sets itself to 720p high definition at 30 frames a second, doing all of its magic, and now it's providing that image to Ecamm. So now I'm also going to do this, and I'm going to change it to the ZV1F. And that's the image that we're getting now. So now this becomes your imagery in any aspect that you want to do with this type of camera. Now, right now, actually, let me do something because it's supposed to be there. Okay, right now you might have seen that the colors changed a bit, and that is because this is full auto. So this is kind of the imagery that you're going to be getting out of this camera immediately, just straight out of the box without kind of messing with anything. But you also have the ability to take control of these settings, and not only through Ecamm but through the cameras themselves. So there's always a way to set a channel here from auto into full manual mode, and you can see how the colors change once again. Right there, you have the ability to take complete control over your white balance, shutter speed, output settings, so on and so forth, which is what you would want to do. So now, if this is what you were going for, you're pretty much set. But at the same time, I can see that, personally, like, I got my little fridge back here and things like that that I wouldn't want to be in the shot. And that's why you would look to see how you would compose. But if at the same time you actually thinking that, you know what, this camera might be trying to do as little movement as possible. This camera might be too tight and I actually need it to give me more information. Well, there are certain things that we can or cannot do. And with this Sony ZV-1F, the one thing that we can is actually attach a wide angle lens adapter. Now, this is not a replacement of a lens whatsoever. It is just an adapter that was made for the original ZV-1, and that actually just widens the amount of view that you have on certain cameras or certain lenses that could be applicable. This actually works on this as well. And just putting it there, as you can see, it totally changed a bit of the imagery because it's giving a lot more bokeh, but at the same time it's gotten a lot wider. So even though the camera is fairly close to me, as you can see, it is just within inches. At that moment, I still have the ability to have a much wider field of view because I was able to attach this wide angle lens adapter. At the same time, this might not be the look that you're looking for. You're probably trying to eliminate that amount of shot. Well, that's where we would be removing said wide angle lens adapter. I didn't think I spun it that many times. And as far as readjusting the placement of your camera, you have the ability to maybe digitally zoom in. Okay, 1 second. Which will now give me the ability to recompose. And as you can see, I have now taken the majority of the shot and kind of shrunken it down by zooming in. And these are the pros and the cons of having a system like this. But the limitations is that this is about as far as I can take it. And this is completely at its widest aperture at f1.2. So if you were someone who was looking to get the type of look with the blurry backgrounds without it being digital or made through a different program, then you'd be looking to actually have more of a zoom factor, which is when we would lead into like interchangeable lens cameras that give you the ability to recompose your shot altogether. Now, one thing that I wanted to touch on was kind of like the mixed lighting, and I'm gonna take this time right now to demonstrate what would happen with mixed lighting, because right here in the back we have like this orange light, and I've allowed today a lot of natural light to come in to kind of give that same type of feel of mixed lighting. But if you were dealing with tungsten lighting, which let's go ahead and just do all the lights because that would be the easiest thing, you would see how the overall look drastically changes. And this is when we would take into effect adjusting our white balance. Because our white balance is off, I am now able to Get in there. And by matching a tungsten type color, right, with my white balance, as you can see, we've brought back kind of the same exact look that we had before, because matching the correct white balance will actually do everything that you need with getting the appropriate colors and skin tones. So as you can see, all the lights in my house right now are just as tungsten as can be, yet the purples and the colors that were being represented before are still done correctly because I was able just to match it. Now, even though there's charts, right, like the one right there on my calendar, right there, right? Even though there's color charts and things like that, you still have the ability to adjust these things on the fly and play with them so that you can see how they do affect your imagery. And the reason why is because even though I did match all of the colors, having the more tungsten light generally in the environment is giving me more of a tan or a orange look, which might be exactly what you're looking for, right? It looks like I kind of just came from the beach, even though the rest of the colors are being adjusted correctly in your eyes. This is the power of knowing the white balance or the correct lighting. Just one second. Yes, Aiden. Yes. I think he's not sure that if I'm speaking to anyone right now because he's just over here not just poking at me trying to figure out what I'm doing, but he's fine. All right. So now adjusting this lighting and going back to it, you might even see it here like on the highlights that it is taking that and adjusting it accordingly. If I were to go to the first shot or this one, as you can see, this is what my main camera here would see because it is a set up to the previous light setup. So as soon as I cool off all the lights, we're kind of good to go. But if I were to go back to this one, which is set up now for all the tungsten, it just went extra cool because of the white balance setting. And I just want to adjust it so that we can bring it back. All right. So we'll just continue with there. Now, this is the imagery that you can get 720p, but at the same time right now, I'm going to connect the cam link and reconnect the same exact camera with the same exact settings, but in 4K full HDMI, full HD. I was full HDMI. Listen to me. All right. So you know what? Let's go here. So far, so good. I see you guys have some questions. If you do, please put a Q colon in front of them so that when we get to that section, I'll make sure to be able to address that for you. Okay, so we are on the behind the scenes look over here. Now I'm going to disconnect the HDMI. And we're going to move from that. Okay. Now, okay. So now we are connected. But this shot, I'm going to have to change. All right. And now this is the Sony ZV-1F, the same fixed focal length, same thing, but in full 4K glory. Now, what I'm seeing here is that I'm seeing like I'm way overexposed. So, wrong way. There we go. That looks good. All right. And because I'm already kind of aware of what type of look I'm looking for. At the same time, I'm able to keep my cameras kind of within the same types of settings, and just a simple adjustment of my ISO going from 320 to 200 and lowering it and lowering the sensitivity then brought my exposure to a level where I see that it's correct in camera, it's pleasant to my eyes here, and this could be the look that you're going for. Now, the look and feel, the rest of it is kind of based on what you want to get out of it. Now, personally, I have a live stream every week, which is kind of like my weekly hangout on Saturday nights, and I'm playing music in the background like I have going on right now. And at the same time, I just create a like cool environment that you would want to hang out in, similar to like maybe like a bar, right? Where you're just hanging out, having a drinks with your friends at the end of the week. And for that, I've built a kind of darker type of environment where I have a lot of like accent lights. But there's a lot of people like a good friend of mine, Tom Buck, who absolutely has like 19 or 20 different lights in his setup, and everything is bright and airy and a lot of fun, like a lot of pop within his imagery. And that's the style that he has and that he enjoys. So the finalization of your look and feel is really going to be up to you, because at the same time you're always going to want to start with your good base, right? It's like the, you know, like what, I forgot what they say, but it's basically like when you're cooking, when you have that good base for your sauce, that I think is the bechamel. Once you perfected that, then the rest is kind of like easy, because it's just building upon the, you know, the fundamental that you got going correctly. So you can do this with either LUTs. You can go within your camera's like picture profiles, and within the camera settings themselves, you can play around the same way that we were in just adjusting settings, and look at what's going on in real time to say, oh, I like that or I dislike that. Because there's some people who don't like the over digital or the over sharpness of 4K imagery altogether, and that's when I would say then just stick to 1080 and maybe even get a pro mist filter if that's the type of look and feel that you want to get out of it. But at the same time, it starts with the good exposure and making sure that your white balance and that your colors are correct, because that's when you could actually go into the, you know, systems like this and start adjusting that look and feel. Like if you're saying, I do want something a little bit moodier, right? Well, you can take your shadows and you can just start crushing them. And as you can see, like I haven't lost any detail, because even though I'm adjusting my image, I am actually still have that good base, so that if I were to come back to zero, so to speak, if I were to come back to home, then at the same time, nothing is lost. And if I want to bring up highlights or crush shadows, I'll be able to control that at my to the way that I like it, right? So that's always going in and just messing around with what you can and what you can't do, taking your colors, and you say like, you know what, I look a bit pale, so now I want to add some saturation, right? You can add way too much saturation into your colors like so, but being able to see it in real time and just mess around with it is how you're going to get to that look and feel that you think is the most natural to you, but at the same time is the best for whatever scenario it is that you're doing. You have the ability to adjust tint. Now, tint is kind of like within the realms of white balance. So if you mess up your tint, you could really go askew. So, you know, proceed with caution, but always just mess around, you know, on that. And then temperature is more or less your white balance, your Kelvin scale that you're going to be adjusting. So depending on the lighting and the scenario that you're in, you can use all of these skills and these tools and these terms that you should now be a little bit more familiar with to actually build the look and feel that you want. So let me go ahead and see exactly what's going on. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same exact thing right now, but I'm going to change up one key factor which is the composition. So to create a little bit more space, because if we go back to, no, that wasn't it. This one. Okay. Oh, why are you there? Okay. So going back to this shot here, right? Just giving you behind the scenes. I don't really have a lot of space to manipulate here. And to demonstrate the variety of different lenses that I can use with an interchangeable lens camera, I really don't have the space behind me, but I kind of have it sideways. So I'm going to set up the camera over here where my foliage is, and I'm going to put it in using it in an aspect of natural light as well. And I'm going to open up my window shades and actually redirect all the light, which will ruin every other aspect here, right? But it's going to work appropriate with this, and I'm going to see how I can best utilizing it using a telephoto lens, because I'm going to put a 55 millimeter. If I can't get that one, I'm going to go with a 30, but I'm going to put the 55 on here so that it acts like a zoom lens to represent what I was speaking of before, which was in case you have the ability to stretch out, you can put a telephoto type lens and get a really pleasant image for any type of like talking head, or like any type of speaking, or like Zoom meetings, or any type of imagery that you're going to want to record. So just going to do my best to give an example of a stretched out zoom using this camera and the setup that we got going on here. All right. So behind the scenes, maybe Vin. There we go. You guys almost saw me drop my camera. Excuse me for that. All right. Okay, so let's see here. Go there. And there we go. All right, so now we're actually utilizing my Sony A6600. This is being fed 4K through HDMI into the cam link. Pretty much the same exact like auto settings. But the thing is that, let's say this was from across the room, using appropriate audio, this is similar to a look that you can do with a telephoto lens. Now, as you can see from the previous angle, how far away the camera is, there's no way that I could possibly like reach it, but the imagery can reach me. Now, I can honestly tell you, I would love to hear your opinions on the look of this lens, because this is actually one of my favorite lenses to use for photography. But because of the distance and how far it is, it's not really practical for me to be using for video. But if this is your scenario, this is something that you could be easily done. And if your desk or anything is even further back, which it is still applicable. Like, we have the my other camera in frame here. You understand? That's how far back it is. As you can see, that's actually a good look of my iPhone XR just hanging out up here, giving those sky view shots. But at the same time, this could be something that you're looking for. And if you're really looking to get the most like cinematic and what we can see blurry backgrounds, bokeh type of imagery in your videos, this could be something that you're looking for. But at the same time, it's always fun to mess around and check different compositions, different angles, different looks all together, so that you can share and create differently at your heart's content, using a variety of different compositions, because you have the ability to switch out different camera angles, lenses, so on and so forth. Now, we're really sky view now. Let's bring that back. And what I'm gonna do is switch out to another lens. Maybe not one as telephoto. This is the 30 millimeter, which with the crop factor will act like a 50 millimeter roughly. And now if we were to bring that into effect, so you can see this is way too much light. Let's take all the devices and we're shutting them off. Okay, and natural light, and we're way overexposed. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. That's still kind of a bit harsh. So we're gonna take it there and adjust ISO. Okay, and what I did was basically shut off all the lights in my studio now, and I'm just using natural window light, adjusting it for those properties and the correct exposure. This is the look that you can get. I'm currently using the same A6600, but this is with the Sigma 30 millimeter f1.4. And to double check, it is currently at f2, so not at its most wide aperture. And you can see you're still getting a good, fall off and separation from your background, giving you a cinematic type of look in your images. Now, if I go back to the other shot, as you can see from where I'm at, definitely not as far, right? I've kind of cut the distance in half, but that is just to represent and show you exactly what you can or can't do with a variety of these cameras. Once you have the fundamentals down, like I say, upgrade your skills before your gear, and you're able to go into an environment, work with what you have, assess the lighting sources, right? So that you could adjust your cameras accordingly. And if I said anything, is make sure that you're not in the automatic modes, because that is leaving it up to chance. And if your camera decides, oh, I want to focus on that thing over there in the corner, and it's got a completely different color because it's a different light from the rest of the set, that can wreak havoc on your imagery and your footage. So take control as much as you can, or as much as you're comfortable with, but also know that there's times and places where auto features could be just your best friend, because of the simple fact that you don't want to um, have the thought, like, let's say you're on vacation, you're not really thinking about that, but in the scenarios that you actually require to get the best imagery, you have the skills in place to do so, right? It's all up to you. So this is the imagery that you can get using natural light with the Sony a6600 and the Camlink 4K directly into it. Now we're gonna take it one more step, right? Go back here. Boom. And now this is it in all of its glory. Now this is the same A6600, but right now I'm actively using my 12 millimeter, which effectively with crop factor acts like a 18 millimeter lens, being extremely wide angle, giving you a lot of imagery in this space. As you can see my computers, you can see my camera lights, everything in the background is hanging out here, the behind the scenes. And this is the imagery that you can get using an interchangeable lens and giving it the widest angle. So depending on your situation, your scenario, what composition, what you want to have in your imagery and what you don't, is really going to determine on what you're going to utilize as your setup. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because there's this thing that I've mentioned before, and I just thought about it right now, which is your cone of cleanliness, right? It's something that I've mentioned before. Let me go ahead and power these things back on. And the cone of cleanliness is basically all about your composition. Like from the point source of the camera, which is that lens right there, and anything that goes into it as far as imagery is up to you and is your set design. Don't leave it up to choice, right? Like when I first started this series, Paul had asked me what happened to my Ecamm E that I have on my door, and it's because it was temporarily broken when I got back from creator camp and didn't have the time to set it up. But ever since then, I was able to set that back up. And all the things that you see in this shot are things that I feel that I want to share with my community. And that ends up becoming kind of like the branding and the imagery that I want to share. This is kind of what represents me and a lot of different facets of what I'm all about. And that's what I hope that I have inspired you to do so as well, to take the initiative in, you know, upgrading your skills before gear and maximizing what you can with gear. And it will also lead you to the correct path of knowing what you're going to purchase in the future and what you can steer clear from completely. Because when it comes to cameras, there are all different types of cameras. Like I said, webcams. Some of my new cameras right now are 360 cameras, which really don't come into play into this application. And there's a variety of different things that we can do as creatives, but at the same time knowing your strengths and limitations of the gear that you're dealing with is going to be the best foot forward in anything that you do. So I'm going to go into the Q&A section right now. So if you do have any questions about this or any of the other day's lessons, please be sure to put a Q colon in front of it. And I'm going to do my best to answer those right now. And let's go ahead and get started with that. Changing my look and feel. Too much natural light. All right. Now. Okay, Lou Bartone, welcome. He actually has a question here. Let me see if I go to. There we go. Says lens included or separate in the purchase. That really depends on your budget and what system you're going to buy. The point and shoots, right? Whether it's this one or the ZV1 that has a zoom lens that gives you more flexibility with your composition, that is an all-in-one system. The lenses are part of it, and that's why they're called point and shoot cameras, right? Basically, you pick it up and everything that you need is kind of built into it. When it comes to interchangeable lens cameras and hybrid cameras like the A6100, the A7 series, a majority of the Canon cameras, like just depending on what brand you're talking about, there's a hybrid camera of choice for that brand. And depending on that is depending on the system or the lenses that you're going to have with it. Sony has some cameras that come with kit lenses, and some people do not like kit lenses. Some people say like don't ever use a kit lens. I'm not one of them. I can pull this out right here. This is a simple little 16 to 50 millimeter kit lens that comes with Sony cameras. And I'm not saying that this is the best lens in the world, but what it does is that it gives you the ability to kind of utilize your camera that you just purchased like a point and shoot, right? You have something to work with that you can adjust. It's a zoom lens, so it's going to give you a variety of different focal lengths and ranges. And even though it's not the best in low light, it can allow you to figure out, like we were just doing here, depending on your situation and your scenario, where you would like to set up your camera to start recording, and then how comfortable it is, and how much of your zone of cone of cleanliness do you want to show, right? How much of the background and how much of your set design do you want? You can easily find that with a kit lens. So a lot of cameras are not included, or better said, a lot of cameras have the option of both depending on who wants to purchase it. And that's the advantage of a interchangeable lens camera. Me, I have all the lenses that I want or need, right? So if Sony were to come out with a new camera and I wanted to purchase it, but they only had it with a kit lens bundle, then that would suck for me because I'm just going to be paying for something that I know I'm not going to use, or that I already have one, so it'll just be doubling up on something. And that's where I won't use it factor falls in, because I have two or maybe three of that same lens, right? And plus I have all the other lenses that I prefer to use. So if I buy a new camera, I'm gonna be using my preferred lens, not the kit lens. So even though I have it and I do think it's good, it is separate on purchase depending on how you want to do it. I think that's the best scenario for me, because it gives you the best of both worlds. If you're completely new to it and you need a lens, there's an option to buy it with the kit lens. But then if you're like me and you don't need it at all, there's an option to buy it without it as well. Okay, let me get some water in here. George says, the ZV1F is the one that I bought based on my review. I'm going to set it up at my new desk view TP150 teleprompter. Do you foresee any issues? No. If anything, I don't really foresee any issues, because if you have the camera and you have it set up to 4K, the ZV1F, the image stabilization, the active image stabilization crops in just a little bit as well, which zooms it in just a little bit more. And I don't think that you'd be dealing with infringement type of issues. And when I say infringement, meaning that the teleprompter itself would be infringing on your shot. So the only thing that I would think of is, when using teleprompters, you actually have to be aware of how wide it is or how wide it isn't, so to speak, as far as the teleprompter goes. Because if you have an extremely wide angle shot, it might be picking up the teleprompter itself, and that's what I mean by infringing on your shot. Like, it'll just start closing it in, like if it was a vignette when it's only your teleprompter. But at the same time, you can zoom in a little bit, right, using the camera's uh telephoto mode right here on the top, either wide or telephoto. You could zoom in on it with the rocker, but you could also leave it as is and zoom in using Ecamm. So that's really up to you. And either way you can like mitigate the infringement, and that's even if it happens. But that would be the only foreseeable issue, that I would say, that it might be too wide as far as the image goes, and it might pick up the teleprompter. Says, I noticed your place has a wall-to-wall blinds. How would you have that modified for lighting if you use the blackout curtains? Which would you prefer? Well, these were already here, but if I had blackout curtains, I don't know exactly how I would do it in this scenario, because I don't think I'd be putting blackout curtains, because this is my only window in this room. So that would be the only way to really get it. The window that I have back here with the AC, I kind of covered that one up, so I don't even consider that a window at all. So meaning that that was the only one, I would leave it as is so that I could adjust it and have control, because it does a pretty good job. If I wanted to close it a bit more, I would shut out a little bit more light, but it's control enough, right? At the same time, if I'm not doing any production and I want just simple daylight coming in, because it's just good, like sunlight is good for people, so let's not, you know let's throw that out there, right? Vitamin D is something that we should all be getting the most of. So that's probably why I wouldn't put out blackout curtains. If I had different windows, then I might, just depending on the area that I would be utilizing it. But blackout curtains usually are not necessary unless you also need sound dampening and a bunch of different things. So blackout curtains are usually not, they're not designed for them to be visible, right? Like blackout curtains are usually designed for them to just block out the light. It's kind of like putting up a C stand with moving blankets, and blackout curtains just the same way. George, could you please put a name or a link to that lens in the chat? Please be a little bit more specific, George. Let me know which one of the lenses, because I had three. So we're talking the widest, the medium telephoto, or the most telephoto. And the numbers were 12, 30, and 55. So let me know which one was the one that you wanted. Is the white balance adjustment purely subjective, or is there some software to set it up with? It's not that it's subjective. You can have the software to set it up. Now, the one thing that I don't recommend is automatic white balance, because you're just leaving it up to, to chance. But there's let me bring it up. There's passport color checkers, right? Or color checker passports. You have different things like this where you can just set up your white balance and utilize this to get all the appropriate colors correct, right? This has the full scale, but this also has like sharpness measurements. This is more of a photography tool, but the colors still apply to be able to be utilized to get the appropriate white balance. And then there's other devices like the Expo disc, and depending on the equipment that you have the ability to kind of use a built-in light meter with your camera, or you can buy an actual light meter that will give you the temperature of the light so that you can adjust your white balance correctly. Now, the way that I had reference to it before, we have all of these tools, but I always like to play the games of what if I was stuck in a scenario where I don't have these tools. That's where I really like to utilize the tools to affirm what my thoughts or ideas are. So I would go into a scenario and I would think to myself, hey, this scenario looks like it's 4200 Kelvin with the mixed lighting. It's got some cool, it's got some warm, and I see it falling around this area. Instead of letting white balance just take over and having some photos or videos in one set of colors and another in a completely different set, I will then use the tools to make sure that my assumptions are correct and then start learning according to that, right? Saying like, okay, I thought it was 4400, right? Or 4200 Kelvin, but then the camera says it's 56. I'm like, I'm way off on that Kelvin scale. So it just gives me more to learn in that aspect. And that's the kind of games that I like to mess around with. But there's a variety of different tools, whether they're light checkers, expo discs, passport color checkers, or a simple like shooting card like this. This is called the DGK color tools, right? A color chart. All of these things to allow you to not only dial in your color, but work on your skills to perfecting and understanding them better. Gretchen says, any recommendations on the cam link? I have always gone USB route and I'm considering switching to my main camera to use the cam link. Main camera Canon M6 Mark II. Now, I'm not sure if you have what is called a dummy battery, Gretchen, right? For those of you who might not be familiar with that, a dummy battery is basically a hollowed out shell of the battery type that your camera takes, giving it consistent power to have it powered on indefinitely. Now, the reason why these exist and that they're fairly good is because, for example, we're at an hour of live streaming right now. And if I wanted to go for another hour, 2 hours, so on and so forth, it wouldn't be any issue with my camera yet. Some of these cameras, depending on their size, for example, this little guy right here, right, the ZV-1F, even though it's an amazing little compact camera, has pretty much the smallest battery that Sony makes. Oh, that's my Vivitar with the new. The NP-BX1 battery from Sony, right, is the smallest. So if I were to just be completely reliant on this battery's power to do a live stream and you have it connected via cam link, and at the same time you're not powering it up, or this camera doesn't have the ability to have trickle charge, then you could be in the middle of a recording and you can lose power to it, which is what I kind of won't, like, I not recommend, but I would tell you to look out for, because that's one of the features that plugging it in via USB gives it the constant power to maintain the battery life. So if you're looking to get into the Camlink realm or world, uh, know that what you're going to be gaining is a lot of quality in your imagery, because the Canon M6 Mark II is connected via USB, and that, just like the ZV-1F, when you connect it via USB and it's using that data rate, there's no way that you can push a 1080 or a 4K image. So most likely you're dealing with a 720p image coming out of that camera right now, and if you were to go to the 4K or to the cam link, you'd be able to reach 4K image out of that camera and get the highest quality image out of it. So that would be the benefit of it. And yeah, because I think you might still have needed a dummy battery with the Canon M6 Mark II. So Carol says, watched, but you switched USB-C cable to HDMI to get 4K from the Sony. Absolutely, yes. And just to clarify that again, that was one of the things that I mentioned. A lot of these cameras, just like Gretchen's, when you connect them via USB, you avoid needing the extra cam link 4K, which I'm gonna pull out right here. And what the cam link 4K is, this is a video capture device. So this video capture is going to work on only one thing, which is the best image possible, and that is its one and only job. When you connect these cameras via USB-C, it's doing multiple jobs. It's not only, communicating with the computer and letting it know that it's a webcam, it's also providing the image through that same cable, and also sending and receiving basically electricity power to that device to maintain it powered up through the entirety of your production. So at that time, when you connected these cameras via USB-C, you're actually getting a lower level of video because it's what the cable can handle. Once you're dedicating HDMI to be your signal output, you're telling the camera, all hands on deck, I want the best image possible, and it gives you the full range of high definition in 4K. Then that signal is going to be sent in through your computer through this cam link, which its only job is to capture that amazing good signal and then send it to your computer. But once you're using HDMI, the camera itself, if not plugged in or not using a dummy battery, will be utilizing the battery by itself, and that's where your limitation would come into. So to get the highest quality image, you will have to utilize the HDMI, not only on this or basically any camera whatsoever, because as of right now, they're not capable of providing the highest form of 4K while doing everything else in that singular USB cable. Okay, so Don says, how are you adjusting in real time? Is the camera settings or is this through an external device? I was doing both. So like to explain, when I actually changed all the lights in here to the tungsten lighting to the warm and then changed that, I was actively changing the white balance on the camera. So I went into it, looked at the Kelvin scale, and brought it from like 56, 5700 Kelvin down to the range that the lights were at. And once the white balance and the color temperature of the lights that you're utilizing in this scenario are matched, basically all the rest of the other colors tend to just settle into their natural state, giving good vibrance and good quality of your image. Now, there was a small time that I started adjusting within Ecamm, and that was just to demonstrate when you don't have the ability to change these controls within your camera, right? When you don't have white balance, that with Ecamm you still have the ability to kind of take your image and push and pull it. And that's when I was showing you like to crush the blacks and stuff like that, because it always starts with the appropriate, properly exposed image. Once you have a bright image that is properly exposed, you can then take it and crush it and make it dark, because that's the feel that you want. But it's really hard for you to take something that's dark and underexposed and try to bring it up to make it bright. So it's knowing the pros and cons of equipment, how it works, lighting, white balance, and putting all these little tools in your, kind of like in your Batman's utility belt, and knowing that you'd be able to get the best image in any scenario. Because once you have these concepts, and nobody's a master, right? I'm still learning and going by a lot of experiences myself. And that's what I find the most fun when it comes to photography and videography, is that there's always something new to learn, or something new is even being created, right? Because the types of, like, 20 years ago, we would have never thought of 8K and 16K video. Yet that's something that's talked about on a regular day basis today. So it just goes to show you. Okay, we have another question. He says, today Doc Rock mentioned something specific filter that was used for improving the look on the lights. Would you happen to know which filter that is? That was the one that I mentioned. That was the Pro Mist filter. And if I remember correctly, Doc Rock was using the 1/8, because depending on their fraction is how dark they are. So, like a 1/2 Pro Mist filter is going to be a lot darker than the 1/8 Pro Mist filter, and that is where you're going to basically rate it on your on your um on your setup, on your camera, and things like that. But the one that Doc uses is a Pro Mist 1/8 filter and black, in the black Pro Mist. So that just gives like a nice, like, soft look, and it creates a lot of halation in the lights. It just gives it this extra glow. Says, please tell us what is your favorite lens against for the Sony ZV-E10. Well, my favorite lens is actually not for the APS-C line, but I use it with the APS-C line, which was the most telephoto one. My favorite lens, if they said, hey, Luis, you could only use one lens for the rest of your time as a photographer and videographer, this is the guy right here. My Sony millimeter 55 Zeiss f1.8. So f1.8 is not the brightest or the fastest lens, how we say, right? But it's fast enough. And the one cool thing is that even at its widest open aperture, it doesn't lose any sharpness to like an excess amount of light. So this is the sharpest lens at f1.8 that I've ever used. The warmth of the colors and the imagery that I get from it is absolutely second to none. And why I say that this is the last lens that I would use is because it's kind of like the best of both worlds. If I use this on an APS-C camera, then I get an 85 millimeter focal length. If I use it on a full frame camera, because it's a full frame lens, I get a 50 millimeter look. So with those two to play, this would be my one and only kind of like last lens, because depending on the scenario and the situation that I want to utilize it, both for video and photography, this is going to fit the bill more or less. And the colors and imagery that I get from it is my favorite. So I actually made a video about this being like the last lens that I would use for exactly that reason. And I can use it at 85 for portraits, and then at 50 millimeters for every day-to-day type of photography, street photography, things like that I enjoy doing quite a lot. Because it was the one before the ZV-1F. So if you were saying like, if I remember correctly. Oh, it was the wide angle lens adapter. Okay, that's the Ulanzi one. Let me see. So to answer George's question is about which lens it was. The one that you can find right now is the Ulanzi. I don't know. Let me see if Paul can help me out and put that in chat. Just 15 minutes over, and I got one more question. So I'm gonna answer this question and then see about getting you that link, George. Says, do you have any recommendations or preferences on brand of cam link? Well, I use the Elgato, and I believe that's the only one that's available. There are some other ones now that are like knockoffs of the Elgato. Now, this cam link has been the same since 2017, 2018, but it's still the best when it comes to the imagery that you want to get. And the reason why I say that is because it is actually 4K imagery. Now, there are some less expensive ones that you can find on, the Jungle website, Amazon, and stuff like that. And what actually happens is that they market 4K, but they don't produce 4K. And what that does is that there's like a downgrading process that happens in the middle of the capturing of the device. So even though it says it's 4K, it will receive a 4K image, but when you connect it to your computer at maximum would only get a 1080p high definition stream. So if the image that was going in was 1080, it will produce 1080. If the image going in is 4K, it will produce 1080. And that's not a full 4K capture card. And this one is, which is why I've been using it for so many years. the Elgato can take in a 4K image, and your computer will receive and understand a 4K image like you're seeing here. Anything else would be a fraction of the image that you're going to get. So Camlink is what I would recommend as of right now, and that also depends on your scenario. If you want a little bit more information, Doc Rock just had a stream earlier in the week about his new, I think it was Tuesday stream, about his new setup with a four, let me get this right, because it's a 4K capture card that was made for PCs, but with a special like adapter box, you're able to connect it to the Mac computers and have four different 4K images going in. So it's a one box unit that has like four of these cam links built in. And the reason why he went that route, and just to explain, is that the one negative of the cam links, right, is that if you have more than one, you might end up coming into a little bit of a reconfiguration issue whenever you're going to go live and start using it. Because one thing that these devices do not have is individual identifying numbers. So whenever you turn on your computer, this one connects to your computer as Camlink 1, and the other one connects as Camlink 1. And if you have a third one, it'll connect as Camlink 1, and they don't have an individual identifier so that you can just set them and forget them. So at that point, depending on how many cameras you have, it might be worth looking into that other system if you have more than four cameras or up to four cameras and don't want to have to deal with having to reshuffle images every time you set it up. So that's that. That is Gretchen's question answered, and I want to thank all of you for hanging out here. Okay, Paul's got the. So Doc uses the 1/8, right? Because he says it here as well. We're just referencing that. Yes, and Paul, if you can, just to make it easier for me, if you can put the link to the Ulanzi wide-angle lens adapter that was made for the ZV-1. But this is the one thing, and I do want to emphasize this as well. The one thing that you're going to need, let me get it off. Yes. Is this Photo, Photo step up ring. So just to show you, this is a step up ring. Let me get the information on there correctly. Right, as you can see, 40.5 millimeter to 52. And this is very important because the back threading of the wide angle lens adapter, this one and Ulanzi's, is 52 millimeter. And it actually has this thing set up so that you can glue it onto the ZV-1, right? Because that's what it was designed for. But the ZV-1F does not have that space to actually adhere the lens to, and it has a threaded 40.5 filter thread already on it. Great that it's not plastic and it's metal, so it's there to hold the weight. And what you can do is simply get the step up ring 40.5 to 52, and now this effectively becomes a 52 millimeter metal thread pitch, and that will take this and the Ulanzi wide angle lens adapter and allow you to attach it on there, and you'll be good to go. The one that I'm actually using is a newer brand wide angle lens adapter because I had this lens adapter way before this camera was even thought of being made. So instead of purchasing the new one, I've just been using this wide angle lens adapter. But the one that's the most readily available that gives you that same type of imagery is the one that I just mentioned, the Ulanzi one. And that is it, everyone. Thank you for hanging out. I'm just double checking, and thank you all for giving me this opportunity. I want to thank Katie, Doc, and Caleb and the entire Ecamm team. They said this is going to be the last workshop for the year, so I'm very honored because I didn't even know that when I started making it. I just wanted to try to provide as much information as I could to help out the Ecamm fam in every way, shape, and possible that I can. So I really just want to thank you all for taking the time and hanging out with me for the last 5 days. And we did it, and it was my first one, and I got it, I got it in the books, and we'll see where this goes from there. I learned a lot in doing it, and I can't thank you all for making it possible. So I'll be seeing you all within the realm of Ecamm in the backgrounds, everything. Let's go ahead. Oh well, this is just a blank scene. We'll just run with it. Okay. No, let's go to it. There we go. That's more like it. All right. So with that being said, you said couldn't find the link. Sorry. No worry. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and pull it, and I'm gonna put it in. So just bear with me. Oh, too, buddy. Why are you asking me that now? Okay. So let's see here. Boom. Got it. Thank you for that time. No problem, Paul. I appreciate you and your time as always. All right. So that's the actual Ulanzi lens and the step up ring to match. So put them both there, and you can click those links to get that for the ZV-1F. But like I was saying, I want to thank you all for hanging out here with me and making all of this possible. I hope that you learned something, and if you have any questions, please be sure to leave a comment. I'll be happy to answer that whenever the comments show up, because I'm always within the realms of Ecamm. So thank you all for this opportunity and hanging out with me, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. I have my weekly live streams on Saturday nights, and this Sunday I'm also going to be on the stream show. So if you're not sick of me already and still want to hang out, I'll be doing those streams for the next couple of days. So thank you as always. And that's it, guys. Thanks. I can't say thank you enough for making all of this possible. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next time. Talk to you.